Lisa Harper walked to her mailbox like she did every morning at exactly 8:15. She wore the same blue jeans and white shirt she always wore to work. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. To anyone watching, she looked like a normal 28-year-old woman getting ready for another day. But someone was always watching. Agent Kyle Morrison sat in his gray car across the street, drinking coffee from a paper cup. He had been watching Lisa for 3 months now, and before him, other agents had watched her for years. The file on his dashboard was thick with reports that all said the same thing. Lisa Harper goes to work. Lisa Harper goes home. Lisa Harper buys groceries on Thursdays. Lisa Harper lives alone and has no pets. Kyle scratched his chin and wondered why the FBI cared so much about a woman who worked in a small science lab in Denver. His boss, Director Patricia Wells, had given him the assignment with very few details. Watch Lisa Harper, report everything she does. Do not make contact. Do not let her see you. Lisa opened her mailbox and pulled out 2 letters. One was a bill for her electricity. The other was a magazine about science. She flipped through the magazine pages as she walked back to her apartment building. Kyle wrote in his notebook, "Subject received mail at 8:17 a.m. 2 items. Appeared to read science magazine while walking." The truth was, Lisa was not reading the magazine. She was looking at something else entirely. Something that made her different from every other person on Earth, though she did not know it yet. When Lisa looked at the world around her, she saw more than buildings and trees and cars. She saw tiny dancing lights that moved in patterns around everything. The lights were different colors, and they pulsed and swirled in ways that seemed to follow invisible rules. Lisa had seen these lights since she was a little girl, but she never told anyone about them. She thought everyone could see them and just chose not to talk about it. The lights were stronger around certain things. Electronic devices made them spin faster. People walking by had soft glows around them that changed colors with their moods. Sometimes Lisa could guess what people were feeling just by looking at their lights. But the strangest thing was what happened when Lisa really concentrated on the lights. If she focused very hard, she could make them move. She could reach out with her mind and push the dancing lights into new patterns. When she did this, weird things happened. Last week, Lisa had been frustrated with her computer at work because it was running very slowly. She stared at the screen and concentrated on the swirling lights around the machine. She imagined the lights moving faster, spinning in tighter circles. Suddenly, her computer started working perfectly. Programs that usually took minutes to load opened instantly. Calculations that should have taken hours were finished in seconds. Her coworker, Dr. Bob Martinez, had been amazed. "What did you do to make it run so fast?" he asked. Lisa shrugged. "I just waited for it to warm up," she lied. This was not the first time something like this had happened. When Lisa was 7 years old, she had taken a math test that was supposed to be for high school students. The teacher, Mrs. Janet Stone, had given it to her as a joke because Lisa always finished her regular math work so quickly. Lisa looked at the complex problems and saw the answers floating in the dancing lights around the paper. She wrote down the solutions without really understanding how she knew them. Every answer was correct. Mrs. Stone had called Lisa's parents. Then the school principal got involved. Soon, people in suits were asking Lisa questions and giving her more tests. They wanted to know how she could solve math problems she had never learned. Lisa tried to explain about the lights, but the adults looked at her like she was making things up. One of the people in suits was Dr. Amanda Price, a scientist who worked for the government. Dr. Price was very interested in Lisa's test results. She asked Lisa to take more tests, harder ones. Each time, Lisa looked at the swirling lights and wrote down the answers she saw there. Dr. Price went back to her office and made a special file. The file was marked top secret and locked in a safe. Inside the file was a single sentence. Subject demonstrates impossible mathematical intuition. Recommend immediate long-term surveillance. That was 21 years ago. Lisa had been watched. Ever since. Kyle Morrison did not know about Dr. Price or the math tests or the dancing lights. All he knew was that his job was to sit in a car and watch a woman who seemed perfectly ordinary. He was getting tired of it. Lisa walked into her apartment building and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Kyle could not follow her inside, but he knew she would come back out at exactly 9 o'clock to drive to work. She always took the same route. She always arrived at the lab at 9:23. What Kyle did not see was what happened inside Lisa's apartment during those 45 minutes. Lisa made herself a cup of tea and sat at her kitchen table. She opened her laptop and began working on a project she had been thinking about for months. It was not part of her job at the lab. It was something she was doing just because the dancing lights seemed to be telling her it was important. She was trying to build a machine that could detect the lights. Lisa had studied physics in college, and she knew the lights she saw were not normal. Light did not behave the way these lights behaved. They moved through solid objects. They responded to thoughts. They seemed to exist in a space that was separate from the regular world. Using equipment she had borrowed from the lab, Lisa was building sensors that might be able to measure whatever the lights really were. She did not have much money, so the sensors were made from spare parts and old electronics. But when she worked on them, concentrating on the lights around the components, the devices began to do things they were not supposed to do. Her phone rang. Lisa looked at the caller ID and saw it was her mother. "Hi, Mom," Lisa said. "Hello, sweetie. I was just calling to check on you. Are you eating enough? You sounded tired when we talked last week." "I'm fine, Mom, just busy with work." "You work too much. You should go out more. Meet some nice people." Lisa smiled. Her mother said the same thing every time they talked. "I will, Mom, I promise." After the call ended, Lisa looked at the clock. It was almost 9. She needed to leave for work. She closed her laptop and put her detection equipment back in its hiding place under her bed. Lisa grabbed her car keys and headed for the door. She did not know that in a few weeks her simple life would change forever. She did not know that her dancing lights were about to make contact with something from beyond the stars. And she definitely did not know that Agent Kyle Morrison was about to have the most important assignment of his career. The storm hit Denver on a Tuesday night in October. Rain pounded against the windows of the science lab where Lisa worked late. Lightning flashed across the sky every few seconds, followed by loud thunder that shook the building. Most people had gone home hours ago, but Lisa stayed because she wanted to finish testing her quantum computer. The machine was the size of a refrigerator and cost more money than Lisa would make in 10 years. It was supposed to solve math problems that regular computers could not handle. Lisa's job was to run tests and write reports about how well it worked. But tonight, something was different. The dancing lights around the quantum computer were brighter than Lisa had ever seen them. They spun in wild patterns and changed colors rapidly. Blue became red, became gold, became silver. The lights seemed excited about something. Agent Kyle Morrison sat in his car outside the lab, watching the building through the heavy rain. His windshield wipers moved back and forth, but he could barely see through the storm. He had been on surveillance duty for 6 months now, and he was getting frustrated. Lisa Harper never did anything interesting. She went to work, she went home, she bought groceries. Why did the FBI care so much about her? Kyle's radio crackled. "Morrison, this is base. We're getting some weird readings from your location. Are you seeing anything unusual?" Kyle looked at the lab building. Most of the windows were dark, but he could see light coming from one room on the 2nd floor. "Subject is working late. Building looks normal from here. Copy that. Keep watching. Something big is happening on our instruments." Kyle did not know what instruments his supervisors were talking about. He was just supposed to watch and report. But as he stared at the building, he noticed something strange. The light coming from Lisa's window was not the usual white light from the lab's ceiling fixtures. It was blue and seemed to be moving. Inside the lab, Lisa stood in front of the quantum computer with her mouth open. The machine had turned itself on without anyone pressing any buttons. This should have been impossible. The computer needed special codes to start up, and it used so much electricity that it had to be connected to the building's main power supply. But the power was out. The storm had knocked down electrical lines all over the city. The lab was running on emergency backup power, which was only supposed to keep the lights on and the security system working. There was not enough power to run the quantum computer, yet there it was, humming quietly and displaying information on its screen. Lisa walked closer to the machine. The dancing lights around it were so bright now that they almost hurt her eyes. She could see them moving in patterns that seemed to have meaning, like a language made of light and color. The computer screen showed numbers and symbols that Lisa had never seen before. They were not part of any program she knew about. The symbols moved across the screen in waves, forming shapes that looked almost like writing. Then words appeared on the screen. In plain English, "We have been waiting for one like you." Lisa took a step back. Her heart was beating fast. She looked around the empty lab, wondering if someone was playing a trick on her. But she was alone, and the doors were locked. "Who are you?" She whispered to the screen. New words appeared. "We are the Helix Collective. We speak to you from beyond your dimension. You are the first of your kind to hear us." Lisa sat down in a chair because her legs felt weak. The dancing lights she had seen all her life were not just her imagination. They were real, and somehow they were connected to beings from somewhere else. "What do you want?" she typed on the computer keyboard. "We want to help your species. But first we must warn you, danger comes to your world. Others have found you, and they do not wish you well." Outside in the storm, Agent Kyle Morrison's radio was going crazy. Voices were talking fast, using words he did not understand. "Massive electromagnetic anomaly," someone said. "Quantum fluctuations off the charts," said another voice. "Get tactical teams to that location now." Kyle grabbed his radio. "This is Morrison. What's happening? Do you want me to go inside?" "Negative. Stay in position. Do not approach the building. We're sending backup." Within minutes, Kyle saw black SUVs racing through the storm toward the lab. The vehicles had no license plates, and their windows were tinted so dark that he could not see who was driving. Men in black suits got out of the cars and ran toward the building. Kyle recognized one of them. It was Director Patricia Wells, his boss. She was carrying a briefcase and talking on a phone. Kyle had never seen her look so serious. Inside the lab, Lisa was having the strangest conversation of her life. The beings calling themselves the Helix Collective explained that they were very old and came from a place that existed between dimensions. They said that some living things could naturally see across dimensional boundaries, and these individuals were called bridges. "You are a bridge," the words on the screen said. "Your species calls you human, but you are more than that. You can perceive quantum reality directly. This is very rare." "What are the dancing lights I see?" Lisa asked. "Those are quantum fluctuations. Most beings cannot see them, but bridges can. With training, you can learn to control them. This is how we speak to you now. The machine you call a quantum computer is responding to your presence." Lisa looked at the computer with new understanding. She had always made electronic devices work better when she was around them. Now she knew why. The dancing lights were real quantum energy, and she could influence them with her mind. "You said something about danger," Lisa typed. "Yes, there are. Others who hunt bridges. They are called void seekers. They consume the quantum energy of living beings to make themselves stronger. They have destroyed many worlds. They are coming to yours. Lisa felt cold despite the warm air in the lab. When? Soon. Perhaps days, perhaps weeks. Your world's governments know about you, Lisa Harper. They have been watching you since you were a child. They know what you are, but they do not understand. The threat that approaches. The lab's lights suddenly came on. Lisa heard footsteps in the hallway outside her room. Someone was coming. I have to go, she typed quickly. Wait, appeared on the screen. You must learn to use your abilities. The survival of your species may depend on it. We will contact you again soon. Trust the one called Wells. She knows more than she has told her agents. The quantum computer's screen went dark just as the door to the lab opened. Director Patricia Wells walked in, followed by 3 men in black suits. They all looked very serious. Dr. Harper, Director Wells said. Calmly, we need to talk. Lisa stood up slowly. Her hands were shaking. Who are you? My name is Patricia Wells. I work for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We've been protecting you for most of your life, and now it's time you knew why. Lisa looked at the men with Director Wells. They had the same serious expressions as the people in suits who had tested her when she was 7 years old. This is about the math tests, isn't it? Lisa said. Director Wells nodded. Among other things. Lisa, you have abilities that are very important to national security. And based on what just happened here tonight, I think those abilities are about to become important to the entire world. Outside in the storm, Agent Kyle Morrison watched through his car window as more government vehicles arrived. He realized that his simple surveillance assignment had just become something much bigger and much more dangerous than he had ever imagined. 3 weeks later, Lisa Harper stood in the middle of the Nevada desert, looking at a building that did not exist on any map. The structure was made of white concrete and steel, buried mostly underground with only a small entrance visible above. The sand. Signs around the perimeter warned people to stay away, but they did not say what the building was for. Director Patricia Wells had brought Lisa here after their meeting in Denver. The trip had been long and confusing. Lisa rode in a black airplane with no windows, surrounded by agents who would not tell her where they were going. She had asked many questions, but Director Wells only said, "You'll understand everything soon." Now Lisa was about to get those answers. Agent Kyle Morrison walked beside her as they approached the entrance. He looked nervous. 3 weeks ago, he had been sitting in a car watching Lisa buy groceries. Now he was part of a secret government project that involved aliens and people with special powers. The change had happened so fast that Kyle still felt like he was dreaming. "Are you ready for this?" Director Wells asked Lisa as they reached the entrance door. Lisa nodded, but she was not sure she was ready for anything. Since the night at the lab, her life had turned upside down. Government doctors had run tests on her for days. Scientists had asked her to demonstrate her abilities with the dancing lights. Everyone seemed very excited about what she could do, but Lisa still did not fully understand it herself. The door opened and they walked into an elevator that went down for a long time. When the doors opened again, Lisa saw a huge underground facility with white walls and bright lights. People in lab coats hurried back and forth carrying folders and equipment. It looked like something from a science fiction movie. Dr. Amanda Price was waiting for them. She was older now than when she had first met Lisa as a child, with gray hair and glasses, but she still had the same intense look in her eyes. "Hello, Lisa," Dr. Price said with a smile. "I've been looking forward to seeing you again." "You're the woman who gave me those math tests when I was little," Lisa said. "That's right. I've been studying people like you for most of my career. You're very special, Lisa. More special than we realized back then." Dr. Price led them through the facility, showing Lisa rooms full of strange machines and computers. Scientists worked at tables covered with equipment that Lisa did not recognize. Everything looked very advanced and expensive. "What is this place?" Lisa asked. "We call it the Bridge Research Center," Dr. Price explained. "We built it to study dimensional phenomena and prepare for contact with other intelligences. When we detected your conversation with the Helix Collective, we knew it was time to bring you here." They entered a large room with a chair in the center, surrounded by dozens of cameras and sensors. The dancing lights around all the equipment were very bright, swirling in patterns that made Lisa feel dizzy. "This is where you'll learn to control your abilities," Dr. Price said. "The Helix Collective was right. You need training, and you need it quickly." Over the next several days, Lisa discovered things about herself that amazed everyone at the facility. When she concentrated on the dancing lights, she could make them move in ways that affected the physical world. She learned to bend light around her body, making herself invisible. She could walk through solid walls by somehow convincing the quantum particles in her body to slip between the particles in the wall. The most incredible discovery came when Lisa accidentally created a small ball of pure energy in her hands. The ball glowed with white light and felt warm, but did not burn her. Dr. Price and her team were very excited about this. They had never seen anything like it. "How did you do that?" Dr. Price asked, pointing instruments at the energy ball. "I just imagined the dancing lights coming together," Lisa said. "Like I was gathering them up in my hands." Agent Kyle Morrison watched all of this from behind a glass window. He was supposed to be taking notes about Lisa's progress, but mostly he just stared in amazement. The quiet woman he had followed for months was turning out to have powers that seemed to come from comic books. Director Wells joined Kyle at the window. "Hard to believe, isn't it? 3 weeks ago, the strangest thing in my life was watching someone buy milk," Kyle said. "Now I'm watching a woman who can walk through walls and create energy from nothing." "The energy isn't from nothing," Director Wells corrected. "According to Dr. Price, Lisa is manipulating quantum fields that exist everywhere around us. Most people can't see them or touch them, but Lisa can. Why her? What makes her different?" Director Wells was quiet for a moment. "We're not sure. There might be others like her, but if there are, they haven't revealed themselves yet. Lisa might be the first human bridge, or she might be one of very few." Their conversation was interrupted by alarms throughout the facility. Red lights flashed and a voice over the loudspeaker said, "Alert! Deep Space Monitoring has detected massive objects approaching the outer solar system. All personnel report to stations immediately." Director Wells and Kyle ran to the control room where dozens of people sat at computers looking at screens full of data. Dr. Price was there too, studying readings that came from telescopes pointed at space. "What is it?" Director Wells asked. "The Void Seekers," Dr. Price said grimly. "They're here." On the main screen, blurry images showed dark shapes moving between the planets. The shapes were huge, larger than cities, and they moved in ways that regular spacecraft could not move. Sometimes they seemed solid, and sometimes they looked like shadows. "How long until they reach Earth?" Director Wells asked. "Based on their current speed, maybe 2 weeks. Someone answered. Director Wells looked back toward the training room where Lisa was still practicing with her abilities. "Is she ready?" Dr. Price shook her head. "She's learned more in a few days than we expected, but fighting the Void Seekers requires abilities that take years to develop. One person, even one as gifted as Lisa, can't defend an entire planet. Then, what do we do?" Dr. Price was quiet for a long moment, staring at the data on her screens. When she spoke again, her voice was very serious. "Lisa told me that the Helix Collective mentioned something about awakening other bridges. If there are more humans with her potential, we need to find them and activate their abilities quickly. How do we do that? We don't know. But Lisa might. She's the only one who can communicate directly with the Helix Collective." Back in the training room, Lisa was practicing making herself invisible when she suddenly felt a strange sensation in her mind. It was like someone was calling her name from very far away. She stopped what she was doing and sat down in the chair. The dancing lights around her began to move faster. The quantum computer in the corner turned itself on, just like the one at her lab in Denver. Words appeared on the screen. Lisa Harper. The enemy approaches. Are you ready to save your world? Lisa looked at the screen, then at the people watching her through the glass window. She thought about the alarm she had heard, and the worried expressions on everyone's faces. I don't think I'm strong enough, she typed. You are not alone. There are others like you among your people. They sleep, but they can be awakened. This has never been attempted before. The process is dangerous and might harm you. Lisa thought about the dark shapes moving through space toward Earth. She thought about all the people who would die if the Void Seekers arrived and no one could stop them. What do I need to do? She typed. You must reach out through the quantum field that connects all human minds. Find those with bridge potential and wake them up. But be warned. If you fail, the effort might destroy your mind completely. Lisa stared at the screen for a long time. Then she stood up and walked to the glass window where Director Wells and the others were watching. I need to talk to everyone, Lisa said. I think I know how to fight the Void Seekers, but it's going to be very dangerous. The Void Seekers arrived on a Monday morning when most people were drinking coffee and getting ready for work. Their ships appeared in the sky like dark clouds that moved against the wind. But these were not clouds. They were vessels the size of mountains, black as night, and shaped like nothing humans had ever built. Lisa Harper stood in the center of the Nevada facility, surrounded by machines that Dr. Amanda Price had built to help her reach every human mind on Earth at once. The equipment hummed with power, and the dancing lights around everything were so bright that Lisa had to squint to see. Are you sure about this? Director Patricia Wells asked. She looked worried. The plan Lisa had explained was dangerous beyond anything they had ever attempted. I'm sure, Lisa said, but her voice shook a little. The Helix Collective says it's our only chance. Around the world, military forces were shooting missiles and bullets at the Void Seeker ships, but their weapons passed right through the dark vessels like they were shooting at ghosts. The enemy ships moved slowly over major cities, and wherever they went, people began to feel weak and tired. The Void Seekers were already starting to drain the life energy from humanity. Agent Kyle Morrison watched from the control room as Lisa sat down in the chair at the center of all the machines. He had seen her do amazing things over the past few weeks, but this was different. This time, she was trying to wake up special abilities in thousands of people all at once. If it worked, humanity might have a chance. If it failed, Lisa would probably die, and Earth would be defenseless. Beginning the awakening process, Dr. Price announced over the facility's speakers. Lisa closed her eyes and reached out with her mind like the Helix Collective had taught her. She could feel the quantum field that connected all living things, a web of energy that touched every human on the planet. Through this web, she began to search for others like herself. In Detroit, a car mechanic named Tony Clark was trying to fix an engine when he suddenly felt dizzy. The world around him seemed to shimmer, and he began to see lights dancing around the car parts. For the first time in his life, Tony could see the quantum field that held all matter together. Without understanding how, he reached out and touched the engine's quantum structure directly. The broken parts fixed themselves instantly. In Tokyo, a school teacher named Yuki Tanaka was writing math problems on a blackboard when her vision changed. She could suddenly see equations floating in the air around her, solutions to problems that had not been invented yet. Information from parallel dimensions where other versions of herself had learned different subjects flooded into her mind. In London, a farmer named William Hayes was working in his fields when he felt a strange connection to every plant around him. The quantum field that linked all living things opened up to him, and he discovered he could channel energy through the Earth's entire ecosystem. All around the world, people who had always been a little different, a little more intuitive than others, suddenly found themselves with abilities they had never dreamed possible. Lisa had successfully awakened humanity's first generation of bridges, but the effort was taking a terrible toll on her. In the Nevada facility, Lisa's body shook as she tried to maintain her connection to thousands of minds at once. Blood ran from her nose, and Dr. Price watched her vital signs with growing alarm. "Her brain activity is off the charts," Dr. Price said. "I don't think she can keep this up much longer." "How many have we awakened?" Director Wells asked. "The reports are coming in from all over the world. Thousands of people are suddenly displaying abilities, maybe tens of thousands." In the skies above Earth, the Void Seekers had noticed the change. Their ships stopped moving and turned toward the sources of the strongest quantum activity. They had come to drain the life energy from one planet, but now they sensed something they had never encountered before. An entire species was awakening to dimensional power all at once. The first battle took place over New York City. A Void Seeker ship descended toward the skyscrapers, preparing to drain the energy from millions of people. But as it approached, newly awakened bridges throughout the city began to fight back. A construction worker named Joe Palmer discovered he could create barriers of pure energy that stopped the Void Seekers' draining beams. A librarian named Helen Chang found she could access information from other dimensions and began coordinating the defense of the city, using knowledge that existed in parallel realities. A taxi driver named Carlos Rivera learned he could move through multiple dimensions at once, appearing and disappearing to strike at the enemy ship. The Void Seekers had never faced resistance like this. Other species they had conquered had only a few bridges, individuals who took centuries to develop their abilities. But humans were different. They learned fast, adapted quickly, and worked together in ways the Void Seekers could not predict. In Nevada, Lisa was reaching the limit of her endurance. The strain of maintaining contact with so many awakened minds was killing her. But she could feel the battle raging across the planet, and she knew she had to hold on. "Lisa," came a message through the quantum computer. It was the Helix Collective. "You have done something remarkable. No species has ever awakened so many bridges so quickly. But there is one more thing you must do." "What?" Lisa whispered, barely able to speak. "The Void Seekers were once bridges like you. They were corrupted by isolation from the quantum field that connects all life. If you can reconnect them to the field, you can heal them instead of destroying them." Lisa understood. The dancing lights she had seen all her life were not just energy patterns. They were the visible representation of the connection between all living things. The Void Seekers had lost that connection and become predators. But if she could restore it, they could be saved. With the last of her strength, Lisa reached out through the quantum field toward the Void Seeker ships. Instead of fighting them, she tried to reconnect them to the web of life that linked all conscious beings. The effect was immediate and amazing. The dark ships began to change, their black surfaces becoming lighter. The beings inside them, who had been twisted by centuries of feeding on others, began to remember what they had once been. One by one, the Void Seeker ships stopped attacking. Their commanders, restored to their original nature as bridges, opened communication channels to the planet below. "We remember now," came the message to Lisa through the quantum field. "We had forgotten what we were. Thank you for reminding us. The war was over before it had truly begun." Instead of conquest, Earth had achieved something unprecedented in the galaxy's history. An entire species had awakened to dimensional consciousness in a matter of hours, and then used that power not to destroy their enemies, but to heal them. Lisa collapsed in her chair, exhausted but alive. Around the world, newly awakened bridges were helping their communities deal with the changes that had swept across the planet. Humanity had joined the galactic community not as victims or conquerors, but as healers who had found a way to turn enemies into friends. Agent Kyle Morrison looked at his notebook, where he had been recording surveillance reports on Lisa Harper for months. The last entry he had written was his subject purchased groceries at 3:47 p.m. Now he was witnessing the transformation of his entire species. "I think I'm going to need a bigger notebook," he said to Director Wells. Director Wells smiled for the first time in weeks. "I think we're all going to need new job descriptions." Outside the facility, the Nevada desert stretched toward the horizon under a sky that now held ships from across the galaxy. The Helix Collective had come to welcome humanity to the community of dimensional civilizations. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and its people had proven themselves worthy of respect among the stars. Lisa Harper, the quiet woman who had been watched by the FBI for most of her life, had become the person who awakened her entire species to their true potential. The dancing lights she had seen since childhood had been preparing her for this moment when humanity would take its place among the greatest civilizations in the galaxy.